welcome to War Media Bears Recap. I am Saul Rodriguez, along with my war colleague, Joe Tanksley. And today we got a cool episode. We got CHGO's Greg Braggs Jr. He also comes out in his own podcast, Braggs in the Stands. We had a great conversation with him, just talking, draft, combine, free agency. I mean, what did you think about the whole conversation overall, Joe?
I think, Greg Braggs offered a lot of, valuable insight, having been to the combine and, being around the DMs and getting to speak and ask questions. So I think that, it was very good. He let us, in on a couple of things that's going on around the league. And I think this is going to be a good episode to see with the possibilities, for the Chicago Bears and trading down from number one and possibly setting themselves up, for the future.
Oh, yeah. And definitely there's plenty of talk of free agency, and a running back from New York that, he's thinking about, that he got me back on board on. And in a dare to now that we going to hold Greg to if the Bears, trade back and somehow get Jalen Carter. But that, that and more without further ado, here's the interview with Greg Braggs Jr. All right. Welcome to the War Media Bears Recap interview portion of the show. We have our guest today. It is Greg Braggs Jr. You can see him on all the Bears coverage on CHGO, and he's also the host of the Braggs in the Stands podcast. Thanks for coming on, Greg. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me.
Of course. I mean, with the Bears, there's plenty of stuff to talk about right now with the draft, with free agency. So we'll get right into it. What have been your overall thoughts this offseason regarding the Bears pick? Is it a foregone conclusion that the Bears will trade the first overall pick, or do they consider just taking their man? For example, Will Anderson on April 27th when the draft goes down in Kansas City.
Well, let me just say, getting the number one pick was like winning the Super Bowl. It was a miracle, honestly. And it sounds pathetic, but when you talk about the position the Bears are in as an organization, it couldn't have been a bigger moment to get that number one pick, even more so than just ending up with number two. For Lovie Smith to give us one final kiss on the cheek before I don't know what he's doing with the rest of his coaching career, but if that's his final moment as a head coach, is a tip of the hat to the organization that we, as fans loved him so much. And he took us to a Super Bowl once. I mean, he saved us because we're sitting here. We're sitting on a gold mine, as Bears fans and the Bears organization, and Ryan Poles holding all the cards of the 2023 NFL draft. So I lost my mind personally when we ended up with the number one pick. I was partying like I was ready to put the ticker tape parade together. So yeah, I mean, to me, you have to trade back. You have to do everything you can to add as many assets in this year's draft and the next 2 years going forwards draft with this asset that you have. Yes, Will Anderson is a great talent, and any team would love to have him, including the Bears. But the Bears are just not in the luxury to push all their chips in on one guy. We just had Matt Verderame on with CHGO Bears After Dark, a guy from Sports Illustrated. He just signed with Sports Illustrated. Really smart dude. And he made some great points. Obviously the number one thing, if you draft a guy like that, you need him to work out. You need him to be a very good player. There's injury concern that also goes into it when you push all your chips in on one guy like that, as opposed to getting 7-8 picks from one pick. But then the other point that Verderame made is, and I thought it was really profound, is even if he's generational, is he going to win you a Super Bowl? How many edge rushers are winning you a Super Bowl? Yes, the Bears need defensive linemen, 10 sacks on the year from the defensive line, least ever in franchise history. But they don't just need one defensive lineman. They need 4. They need 2 linebackers. They might need another corner. They need 4 offensive linemen. They may need another running back. They need another wide receiver. They need another tight end. So you're just not filling that with the first pick, and then they don't pick again until like pick 56. So to me, they have to trade back, and I think they absolutely will. Ryan Poles is showing kind of where his mindset is with this, and you're seeing enough teams on the NFL landscape that are desperate to move up to that pick to get a quarterback.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct on that. I mean, that's the way I thought about it. I was like, there's no way. I know you have to consider every option And like, of course, at the beginning, it was like people considering, or there's like the Bears are considering trading, just whatever, blah, blah, blah. But for like to trade Justin Fields to get a quarterback is what I meant. So I obviously now I'm glad that talk has, gone down and more of people are saying, they're going to, go out there and trade it. So I'm glad that's going to happen. Joe, I know we've talked about it in the show before and I kind of know where you stand, but how do you feel about it as it goes right now? Because people as well, are just thinking right now it's for sure that they're going to trade it at this point.
Yeah, I think that it probably is more than likely a foregone conclusion that this pick gets traded. It has to be traded. Like Bragg said. I think now the question is what is the haul going to be? Poles recently did an interview with Peter King where he said he could get a first round pick in 2024 and another first round pick in 2025. Now that has to be the floor now, and then the question is how far are they going to move back? Is it a scenario where they could trade down more than once? Because they do need so much. The last year's roster was completely void of talent. We may have maybe 2 or 3 players that could have played for any other team in the league, and that's not a lot. They need so much, and talent is the issue. And I think the coaching staff proved that they can get the guys to buy in. They were in a lot of close games, and them getting the first pick, was a phenomenal, masterful job, by the coaching staff. I say that because they were able to get the players to play hard and be in games and be competitive and get them to buy in. And then the job, with Ryan Poles did with tearing down the roster, and to then be in the position to have the first pick and the most money in cap space. I think the second closest team is $40 million down, so they can sign anybody they want. Now you got to get in a position to be able to draft, more of the players that you want instead of just one.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And to directly quote what Ryan Poles said in that interview, he said, "No one's gonna rush me. I know I can get a 24-1, a 25-1. You're telling me for the next 2 years I'll have 2 1s." So yeah, I mean it's a lot that that has us all Bears fans, salivating. But I want to know.
My only question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, my only question is how far he's going to move down in order to get that, saying those 2 first-round picks for the next few seasons. Like, how far do you have to move down? And there's a lot of desperate teams in the NFC South right now, with the Saints, signing Derek Carr today, and then, the
Geno
Falcons. Geno Smith being signed. The Falcons released, Marcus Mariota. The Panthers need a quarterback. So there's got to be, a lot of teams vying for that position, and they need a quarterback.
Well, and to your point about the quote about Ryan Poles saying, I'm going to be patient. Nobody's going to rush me into this. There's poker going on here, guys.
Of course.
And they're having these conversations, and somebody's probably like trying to push him, like, "Hey, man, this might be the best deal you're going to have all the way until the draft." And he's sitting there like, "No, dude, you're going to come up to my asking price, or we're not making a deal this week." Yeah, you want, like, if you're the Panthers, you want to make this deal before free agency, so because if you're sitting at 9 and you're the Panthers, you got to know if you got that pick. If not, you got to sign a veteran quarterback, because there's no guarantee you're going to get that quarterback at 9. So he's trying to push Ryan Poles, like, let's make this deal now. Let's make this deal now. And Ryan Poles is like, we can make this deal now, but you're going to give me a first-round pick in 24 and 25. That's to me what he's saying there. And I'm like, push all my chips in on Carolina. I've always thought they were a great destination. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that they need a quarterback, and there's a nice soft landing spot. Them and the Colts, I think, is something everyone's talked about. But to me, at 9, you get more juice with how many picks you get back than you do with the Colts at 4. So I like that spot, and you're still in the top 10. And I just think that's a perfect landing spot. And the Panthers GM, when I was at the Combine, I even got to ask him a few questions. He kind of showed that how much they're looking at moving up, A, and B, he said, and I quote, in an ideal world, we draft a quarterback to develop and have for the next 5 to 10 years. And then the next thing he said was, we're in a salary cap situation, so maybe spending $50 million on a veteran quarterback isn't the route we want to take. You add those two things together, and then you also add in the fact that they made a trade for trade Christian McCaffrey to the Niners. They got all these picks in return. That's draft equity that they can put into a package and move up to the Bears, because it ain't going to just be a first-round pick in 24 and 25. You're also going to be getting second-round picks. You're going to be getting like 6, 7 picks from these guys, and maybe even a player. That's why it's like, that's the gold mine I'm looking for. 2 trade backs, that would be great, but I'm looking for that home run package from one team. If they trade back to the Texans at 2 and then do that home run package with someone at 9 or 11 or this mystery team that's deeper in the draft, okay, I'll do that too. But 1 to 4, 4 to 9, you may not get the kind of deal that you'd get just going 1 to 9. So, they have these metrics that they look at for like what the value chart is and how much they can get from a team. So I got my eyes dead set on the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, Greg, and you read my mind, because that was the next question I was going to ask you. What's your dream package? No,
I have a knack for going through things because I just talk so much. I'll probably answer all 10 of your questions in one rant.
And that's the show. That's the show. No, but yeah, you're right. No, you're right. And I was going to ask you too, because, and Joe, we'll let you. I was going to ask you the same thing. What's your dream package? But I want to know also what you guys thought about when the chatter was, like I think a couple weeks ago about like DeAndre Hopkins and like that whole Arizona Cardinals thing. Like, did you think that was all BS? But Joe, go ahead. What's your dream package before you go into that?
I think, Rags, kind of, laid it out. I don't think you can get in, much better than that. I think what I'm looking for is for Poles to put the Bears in a position to build through the draft and just increase the talent level on the team. And you do that with your first and second round, third round picks. We had to give up the second round pick for Chase Claypool. That's a pick that needs to be recouped. So I'm looking for that to happen. I think the more picks that we can get in the top 50 is definitely that this year. Would put us in a good position to be competitive. In 2023. And so on.
If there's some mystery team in the 20s that wants to move all the way up to 1. I want the Ricky Williams trade package where I'm getting every pick in your draft for the next 3 years. That's the only way I'm moving out of 20.
Yeah, like you want to be like the Oklahoma City Thunders, right? Where they where they have like, all these picks from to like 2040. So yeah, no, I get that, that's for sure. But yeah, Greg, what was your thoughts overall on that, on the Hopkins thing? Like, did you think that was BS? Like, or did you like, see through the smoke or anything like that?
No, I think there's definitely something there. I mean, they can get out of that veteran contract, and the Bears can, if he's only got 2 years left on his deal, maybe he'd want an extension. I don't know how that would work, but now you get DeAndre Hopkins for 2 more years. He helps fill out that wide receiver group. Even him or a guy like Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, or, there's been so many different names that have been thrown out there. Yeah, I'm putting all that on the table because they have to get a wide receiver. They get it through the draft, fine, but there's no guarantee, because you don't know if a guy's going to actually fall to you in the first round or the second round or any of that stuff. So yeah, I'd love to have DeAndre Hopkins on the team. And I also think it wouldn't cost as much as it would to get T. Higgins, who I also would love to have on this team. If the Bears make a trade, that's why another reason why if the Bears can make this trade with the Panther, whoever, before the free agency period, and now you've added multiple first round picks in the upcoming years, you can go to the Panthers and say, I'll give you one of these future first round picks for T. Higgins right now. Like somebody like that. They need, Ryan Poles has said it multiple times, and I'm going to hold him to his word. They're looking for playmakers. Okay, so you need more playmakers than what you already have. Good, because Justin Fields freaking deserves it. After what he had to go through last year, trying to throw to Dante Pettis and Equanimeous St. Brown, all due respect to those guys. Justin Fields had to carry this team on his back. We're not even talking about the offensive line that had him running for his life, sacked 56, 58 times. Should have been sacked. How many sacks did he break? Like 30. He should have been sacked 98 times, honestly. So, he deserves all the help you can possibly get. So getting him a wide receiver is imperative, because now Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool become that much more dangerous in a group with another guy. And then you can have Velus Jones be exactly who he is, a gadget guy who can come in for a package of plays. draft a wide receiver in the later rounds, like a Tank Dell. Now all of a sudden this group that last year it was like desolate, and you had, once Mooney got injured and Claypool too, there was nothing there. They gotta that whole room needs to expand. So, they better get a wide receiver one way or the other. So I'm all in for a guy on any of those veterans that we talked about.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then also, with the combine just going down, I mean, I was going to ask you, Greg, too, as well. Was there anybody? Because I know, and I mentioned him too, to the Will Anderson thing. Like, is there somebody out there that nobody's talking about that, besides Jalen Carter, we know the situation and what's going on with that. But is there anyone else out there that you guys don't think is getting enough attention right now, especially out of the combine?
Defensively or offensively, just anywhere.
Particularly in any. So if, like, let's say the Bears don't get Will Anderson, who's the next guy up in your mind, at least, or at least a type of quality player, at least.
I mean, Tyree Wilson. I mean, certainly is standing out. That's a guy that you want to look at. It's going to be interesting because there's a few different candidates. Corey Wooten, who I work with CHGO, he has, some hesitation with some of these guys. Breesy, I don't know if it's Brees or Breesy out of Clemson.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The defensive lineman. He's not as big on him. And then there's other people that love him. He's like, he doesn't flash enough for me. I take a lot of stock in what Corey Wooten said. He's played the game. It's going to be interesting. I would go with Tyree Wilson as the candidate for, that spot at 9. Now, Jalen Carter drops to 9. If the Bears trade back to 9, get all these picks and still draft Jalen Carter, I'm going to rip my shirt off and jump into Lake Michigan. I swear to God. I'm going to
we're going to hold you to it. We're going to hold you to it. What about you, Joe? Is there any guy in particular? Is there maybe if they don't get Will or Jalen, is there a player that type of player that you're looking for the next week?
I mean, obviously, what was just said would be ideal if the Bears could trade back to 9 and get Jalen Carter. I think that would be. I think that would be a good bet because you set yourself up, with multiple first round picks coming up, to kind of insulate against that, in case there is a real issue there. But I do think that the Bears doesn't get talked about a lot. Bragg mentioned it, but they do need another corner. They do need another corner, and that's a premium position in the NFL. And I even though the secondary played well, last year, you can't, go out there with Dildor and Jones again, and try to compete against some of the talent that they have, especially a wide receiver. So I do think, they should go out there and get a corner. I don't know if they'll be in position to get the kid from Illinois, who's been pretty good. But I like them to get a corner.
Devin Witherspoon is a monster, dude. I mean, he's probably going in the top 15, maybe even top 10. So if you're gonna, try to shoot your shot that high, I mean, he's certainly a talented player. But I definitely think they should add to the secondary and Verderam, like I said, who we just had on. He said this is a deep class for corner, so I like hearing that. Add another guy to that secondary, but I thought the secondary outside of Justin Fields was the next best bright spot for the Bears. I mean, you had Jalen Johnson, you had Jalen Jones, you had Josh Blackwell, when Kendall, before he got hurt, I thought he was competing. I know he's not perfect, but I certainly thought he was competing. Eddie Jackson, I thought evolved not just into a really good player, but I just thought a leader on this team, was also sticking his head down in the hole and hitting guys, which is something people criticize him a lot about. And then you had Jaquan Brisker, who I thought was a standout as far as a rookie, and Kyler Gordon, who got picked on early in the season, continually improved. Now, this is a secondary, mind you, that improved and had some, like I said, with Blackwell and Jalen Jones at the end, who kind of started to shine. This is a secondary that kind of started to emerge as a bright spot with the worst pass rush in Chicago Bears history. It's unheard of for a secondary to get better in any semblance of the way when you have a pass rush that only got on their defensive line 10 sacks on the year, a franchise record low in Chicago Bears history, who's had some great defensive lines. 10 sacks, the most sacks they had on the team. Can you guess the player who had the most sacks on the Bears this year?
Brisker
with 4. 4 sacks from your safety led the team. The Eagles on their defensive line, every single dude on their D line had 10 sacks or more. So for this secondary to play well under those circumstances is a huge bright spot. You get them a pass rush, and I expect them to take another step too. But I'm with you. I'm fine with taking another corner. That's why we got to add as many picks as we can from picks 12 through 60, because then we can have the luxury of adding a corner, even if that's not necessarily our top priority.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to see when this draft is all said and done. I want to see, or even like, when the Bears pick in the top 10 or whatever, I want to see that Thanos, like that meme of Ryan Poles. Yeah, with Ryan Poles' face, just like with all the picks, because that's what I want to see. Hopefully that's what we get. But going into free agency now, obviously a lot of the talk is going on today because of Derek Carr, got signed and all that. But for you guys, off the top of your head, one guy in particular that you want the Bears to target in free agency? Greg, we'll start with you. Is there anyone like on top of your head right now, or is it more of like there's not much out there, at least especially because with the wideouts is one of the markets that the Bears are going to look in. I know there's not much there. We're probably going to have to go by trade, like for like a T Higgins or whatever. But yeah, anyone in particular that stands out for?
I mean, we need meat and potatoes, right? Yeah. We need an offensive line. We need a defensive line. That's great. We need those. I want skill guys, okay? I want Justin Fields, as I said before, to have every weapon at his disposal. Give me Saquon Barkley all day long. Put him with Justin Fields and watch this team eat. I mean, they ran for like 3,000 yards last year. Justin Fields ran for like 1,200. This team, David Montgomery, great, is one of the hardest working players, hard runner. All due respect to David and the guys at CHGO, Adam Hogan, they try to act like I hate on this guy. I don't. I have respect for Dave Montgomery. Really nice guy, but he only had one run over 20 yards last year. So you got to really love them hard yards. And I get it. He's a good player, but one run over 20 yards? Come on, guys. Saquon Barkley could be another guy. Like if you can't find that wide receiver through a trade, free agency, or even if they fall to you in the draft, you got to get this guy weapons. Playmakers is what Ryan Poles said. Saquon Barkley is a playmaker. So you have all this cap space, right? You got to hit this cap floor. They have to spend a certain amount of money. You take Saquon Barkley, you show him a 3 or 4 year deal, you front load that contract, and you give him the most money you possibly can in those first 2 years. And you don't worry about it, because what's he going to do? He's going to help your quarterback out to become the player that he deserves to be in this league. Get him help, because the number one priority over everything they have to do, and they've got a lot of holes to fill, is figuring out who Justin Fields is. The only way you're ever going to find out who he is getting playmakers around him so he doesn't have to do everything himself. Give me Saquon Barkley.
Wow. I will say, I think I lost hope with the Saquon Barkley a little while ago, but I'm back. I'm gonna go to sleep dreaming. Saquon Barkley, Bears jersey. Yeah, I'm gonna go to sleep dreaming. Yeah, because early on in the offseason, they were saying like, oh, it'd be a perfect fit, and a lot of people talk about Saquon Barkley's running, right? But a lot of people don't talk about his blocking, and that was one of the things that they like in New York. So it's there's a lot of reasons to get him. Not so I really hope that comes to fruition. So Joe, what about you? Is there anyone in particular, or is it Saquon?
You know what? I like Saquon a lot, and I think that him, paired alongside with Justin Fields, when the run pass option makes the Bears a very dangerous team. But you also have to have some players to throw the ball to, and the wide receiver class of this free agency is not very good. I was looking more so getting some veteran help on the offensive line. Whoever that may be. I know Matt McGlinchey. From is it Matt McGlinchey? Is it McGlinchey? I know his last name is McGlinchey from the 49ers is available. Dudes, you talked about the defensive line as well. I thought that Frank Clark has just been released. I don't know how much he has left in the tank, but it might be something worth taking a look at as well.
No, yeah, that would be that. Yeah, if that he does enter free agency, then yeah. But I think they're going to talk to him in a week or something to talk to him. But we'll see, hopefully. But besides, I ruined it. I spoiled my last question because I was going to ask you guys about Lamar Jackson. So where with it, like, where do you think he's headed? Like, I know that's probably one of the biggest questions in the offseason. Do you think if he goes anywhere, or do you think he's just staying in Baltimore? Greg, we'll start with you.
The Ravens would be crazy to let this team go.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get it. And they seem to have had some like friction within the organization. So I get why there's a lot of smoke there. If they're stupid enough to let him go, I guess Atlanta might be an option for him. That's probably the team that I would pinpoint. Maybe Washington, but the idea that the Ravens would let a guy like that go, that's just so dynamic and creates so many problems for defenses with his dual threat. I don't know. But those were the two teams that I think stood out to me when you mentioned that.
What about you, Joe?
I think Lamar Jackson is going to get franchised this year. I don't think they're going to let him go. I did think that, the Falcons could, possibly put something together to get Lamar Jackson. And, with the all those question marks they have in the NFC South and with the Saints, signing Derek Carr and putting them as the favorites to win that division. And then you got, the Jaguars got the picks to move up and get a quarterback. The Falcons are kind of left out. So they could be a player in this, before it's all said and done. But I don't think the Ravens would let Lamar Jackson go. That would be foolish. I do think that there is some smoke, within that organization. I don't think he was quite happy with how he was characterized towards the end of the season with his injury and not playing, and people coming out saying just put a brace on it and play. And I think that for real. I mean,
That's crazy.
It was crazy. And people forget that he was kind of mentored a little bit by RG3, who went through the same thing. So he was not going to put himself in that position. So
I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll try it. Give me my money.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So I do think, they say that they want to keep him, and it's unfortunate, the market was set by a guy like Deshaun Watson, but it is what it is. Lamar Jackson's already won an MVP. He's proven, he's a dynamic and scary player in the league, and he's the guy that makes that team go.
Yeah, no, I also agree with you guys. I think that'd be crazy. I mean, it's like you trade him, or sorry, you let him go. Like, where do you go from there? And I think also it's one of those things too, is that you're going to regret it forever. Lamar Jackson's going to go somewhere and, have success. But yeah, so we'll see. But I think that's a good place to wrap things up with Greg. Greg, really appreciate you coming on, man. We got two things guaranteed now. So I'm going to go to sleep thinking about Saquon Barkley in a Bears jersey tonight. and we're going to hold you to it. The Bears trade back, get Jalen Carter. You're jumping in Lake Michigan. All right, so we got you. Thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, man. I had a lot of fun talking with you guys. Appreciate the invite. Keep up the good work.
All right, thanks, man. You too. Take it easy. All right, so that's our interview with Greg Braggs Jr. He was a great time, and so now, like I said there, hopefully the Bears make a run at Saquon, and hopefully the Bears make a run at Jalen if he, ends up getting drafted in the first round, late tens or whatever. Sorry, late top 10. But yeah, what did you think about it, Joe? And like, overall, your situation. What are your thoughts after the conversation? Like, are you more optimistic, or how is it?
You know what? If anything less than 6 picks,
that's right.
Anything less than 6 picks is going to be a disappointment now. Braggs really got us excited for the possibilities, of the Chicago Bears setting themselves up for success. As long as with the possibility of adding Saquon Barkley, you talk about, them having to be, build a salary floor, and having playmakers around, Justin Fields. Well, there's not going to be a better playmaker in this free agent class than Saquon Barkley. There's still a lot of questions of what's going to happen with New York. They got to re-up Daniel Jones, so that may have something to do with it. But hopefully, we can get a Saquon Barkley, and like we said in the interview, no disrespect to David Montgomery, but Saquon Barkley is a generational type talent, and him paired along with Justin Fields would make them very dangerous, in the NFL.
Oh yeah, and the dreams of picks and all that's going to continue until April 27th, because that's when the draft goes down, and that's going to be a good time. So we'll keep on keeping on and have another recap sometime soon. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank Joe Tanksley. I am Saul Rodriguez, and hope everyone has a great week.